a man discovered that he had lost his wedding ring. Needless to say, he was beside himself. And he began this prayer, "Lord, help me, for this is very important." And this was not, a wedding ring is not just another piece of jewelry. It's a symbol of the love and the fidelity between a man and a wife for all their years of marriage, all the years of ups and downs and joys and sorrows. So he began to tear apart the house. He had no idea where the ring was. And he did everything. He pulled the couch apart, taking the cushions off, looking in the cracks. He looked under every desk, every chair, every bed. He even went outside to a wood pile where he had chopped some wood for the fireplace, took all that wood down. All the time during this process, he keeps saying to himself, "Lord, help me. This is very important." And he even went so far as he emptied the bag on the vacuum cleaner. And you know what a job that is, how dirty that is. And it wasn't there. So as he finished that, he went to the sink and he started to wash his hands. And while he was washing his hands, the family cat, who had a habit of doing this, jumped up on the counter and knocked a spoon into the garbage can, which was just below. And he said, "Last night I took my ring off and I put it on the counter to do the dishes, and the cat jumped up last night. Maybe it's in the bag of garbage." So he went to his wife and he said, "I think I know, and I think it's in the bag of garbage." And the wife's face got ashen. And she said, "You took that bag to the neighborhood dumpster last night." Lord, help me, because this is very important. So he runs down to the neighborhood dumpster, and it's empty. The truck has already been there and has emptied all of the garbage out of the dumpster. So he gets in the car and he rushes down to the refuse company, and he sees the clerk, and he tells the clerk, I've got to get into that garbage that was picked up. This is very important to me." And the clerk says, "Are you nuts? Do you know how much garbage is compacted in there? It's probably over a ton of garbage." And the man persisted again, "Lord, help me. This is getting serious." So he said to the clerk, "When is your truck going to the landfill?" And the guy said, "It's going tomorrow morning." And he said, "Let me go down to the landfill and I'll follow the truck." And the guy said, "You can't be kidding. You can't be serious." But he persisted, so the guy picked up the phone and he called the landfill office and told them what this guy wanted to do. Needless to say, they got the same attitude from the landfill. He's got to be nuts. But they reluctantly agreed, and the man from the refuse company says, "Tomorrow, when our truck comes in there, find him a place that's relatively flat and clean, so when he dumps it, they'll have maybe some chance of finding it." Lord, help me. This is going to be serious. So the next morning, it's a gray, overcast, cold, sleeting, and rainy morning in December. He follows the truck down to the landfill. The driver empties the contents of the truck and the pile is 6 feet high and 30 feet long. Lord, I really need your help. And the driver jumps down from the cab and says to the guy, I think I know exactly, not exactly, but I think I know about where the part from your dumpster is. And the guy said, you're going to help me do this? The driver says, yeah. So he jumps down, and the driver walks about a quarter of a way into the pile and says, this is the place I think where your garbage should be from the dumpster. So they wade into the garbage. And the rain and the sleet's coming down, and they're freezing, and about an hour goes by. And the man finally looks down, and he sees a hole, and he pulls it up, and it's a paint can. And it's the paint can that he used that very week to paint the shutters on his house. And he said, it's got to be somewhere around in here. More bags, and he finally rips open a bag, and there's a crushed egg carton, and inside one of the little places for the egg was the ring. And he and the driver jump for joy and howl for joy, and they embrace each other, and the guy just can't thank the driver enough. And then he even says, Lord, thank you. That night, he and his wife went out for a celebratory dinner at a nice restaurant, and she took the ring and slipped it on his finger and said, with this ring I thee wed. And he looked at her and he said, honey, I know a lot of people thought I was nuts to do this. But she said, I didn't. The Shaker tradition, the religious sect, has a concept and a definition of prayer that defines it this way. Prayer is hearts for God, hands for work. Hearts for God, seeking God's vision. Hands for work, make that vision a reality. This morning in Luke's Gospel, we hear Jesus teaching the apostles what we know as the Lord's Prayer. And you'll notice that this version is a lot more concise than the one in Matthew's Gospel. But the important thing, I think, to realize is, yes, the words are important, but more than that, Jesus was teaching the apostles an attitude of prayer. And the attitude he was teaching them is, we don't go to prayer to impose our will on God. We go to prayer to ask him for us to be open to do his will, not ours. One person who I consider to be a very famous religious writer once put it this way: prayer doesn't change God, prayer changes us. That we're open to God's will. The prayer that Jesus was taught the apostles really had three main characteristics, three main parts. First, it acknowledged the goodness and the love of God. Notice Jesus said you start with Father, Daddy, Abba, our loving Father in heaven, who is not some cosmic tyrant who demands constant pleading when he knows what we need. And he knows and he gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want. Secondly, he was teaching them to ask for the grace to do God's will. We come before the Lord and we say, remember the words, your will be done, not my will be done. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we're praying that we become the agents of God's love, compassion, forgiveness, reconciliation, for all the things he wants us to be. And thirdly, we voice our hope in the providence of God. Again, we come before God, and in the words of the gospel this morning, we come with the hope, and we know where it says, if you are a father who know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your heavenly Father give you what you need? Remember, I bet every one of us have gone through things in our life where we have prayed and we thought the prayers went unanswered because we didn't get it on Tuesday that we wanted it. But in retrospect, when we go through it and we look back with 20/20 hindsight and we find out and we thank God he gave us exactly what we needed at that time. Not what we wanted. Hearts for God, hands for work. The man who lost the wedding ring and found it prayed, and his prayers were answered, not by some miraculous GPS signal on his ring, but it was answered because he had the grace, the courage, the strength, and the persistence. The persistence to attack a mountain of garbage to find the ring. Hearts for God, hands for work. I would respectfully suggest to all of us that maybe when we say the Our Father, and how many times have we said it in our life, and maybe at the end we remember those words. Hearts for God, hands for work. Peace.